If you like the Daniel Blair Show, you will love Main Event Moto. Come join producer Joe and I at patreon.com/maineventmoto, where we talk Supercross, we talk motocross, and deliver 3 long-form podcasts per week with no commercials. Again, that's patreon.com/maineventmoto, or you can click the link in the bio. Thanks for watching, and enjoy this week's episode of The Daniel Blair Show.
The Daniel Blair Show, sponsored by motosport.com, Mika Metals, Race Tech, ASV Inventions, and Guts Racing.
So many storylines heading into Thunder Valley, but there can only be 10 lead stories. And we start with lead story number 10, and it's all about the number 10. Admittedly, I am an absolute nerd when it comes to figuring out who is getting what number year after year, and this is typically the time when I start tracking. Juju Beaumer, Seth Hammaker, and Hammaker Marchbanks have a shot to get 2 of the raddest numbers in the sport in Justin Brayton's number 10 and Justin Bogle's number 19. And after another weekend stacking points, Juju sits 3rd in the championship and is 1 week closer to grabbing the old 1-0. The last few years, we've had long-standing permanent number holders give up their career numbers, like Brayton and Bogle, and Brock Tickle, Chad Reed, and Chase Sexton, who randomly switched to 4, which opened up the options and is allowing younger riders to grab lower numbers than they typically have in the past. This whole thing goes in waves, and there are periods of time when nothing is available, and we would tend to see a rider or two grab a number in the 20s, with most young riders that have had great seasons end up in the low 30s. But with these retirements, that has changed. And as it sits right now, you would have Beaumer at 10, Hammaker at 19, Marchbanks at 20, Cody Schock at 22, Michael Mosman at 23, Chance Hymas at 25, and Cole Davies at 26. Next up, depending on if he'll actually retire, is Kyle Chisholm's 11 and maybe Grandpa Earl's 15. Even though Dino did pretty dang good this year, and as much as he tries to retire, he seems to always find his way back to the gate. Now, I never got a 2-digit number when I raced. I had 85 points in 250 Supercross in 2009, which would have put me around the high 50s or low 60s. But back then, they didn't use 250 regional Supercross points towards your number, so it was good old 125 for me forever. But with 250 Supercross dudes racking them up, riders like Beaumer, Hammaker, and Marchbanks are in line for an upgrade and the lowest numbers that they have ever had. Lead story number 9 is sort of a good, bad, and an ugly, but it's the glimpses that Casey Cochran and Chance Hymas have given us through 2 rounds of racing, and we'll start with Cochran. The good, speed, and starts. Casey has given us a glimpse of how high his ceiling can reach with good qualifying times and a tendency to find himself up front, like at Hangtown where he led Moto 1 for about half of it. The result sheet isn't popping just yet, but in all reality, the injuries Cochran had in the offseason were bad. Actually very ugly and more serious than they let on, and his prep was less than you think. With his speed and those starts, all he needs is a little time, and you'll see the 18-year-old closer to the front at the end of these motos. Chance Hymas was one of the favorites to challenge Deegs heading into the season, and he proved it by stealing top qualifier at Paula, which was good, but has since had a downward spiral that has some interneters chirping. Moto 1 at Fox Raceway, he led, then fell. Moto 2 was quiet. Moto 1 at Hangtown, he was up front again, then faded back. In Moto 2, he wasn't on the gate. Some are starting to suggest that there's an issue with his hype meter, and although he's not producing where most had him coming in, I believe it's circumstantial. Being sick is a real thing, and it's bad, especially in 100-degree weather, so I'm going to trust my eyes on this one. Let's settle down. He's young and going through some growing pains, but if we get halfway through this thing and it doesn't turn around where he's a podium threat every week, I'll rejet my carburetor. But for now, I think it's just circumstances. Out with the old and in with the new for lead story number 8, and it's Jeremy Martin, who has closed things down earlier than expected, and Kaden Minear, who may be going in earlier than expected, and it might even be this weekend. J-Mart was not as prepped as we thought coming in. Actually, in reality, I don't even remember hearing if he even was prepared until after he raced, when we learned that he hadn't really ridden, but was shredding at the practice track and got a deal somewhat randomly. Go figure, it didn't go well, as the class is too deep to play around in, and for Jeremy, I don't think it was much fun being in a war zone unprepared. The team announced Millville will be his final race, which is obviously the perfect location to end his career, but is sitting out the next few rounds, which opens up the door for my dude, Kaden Minear. Minear won his first moto at the Ironman Combine last year on his KTM Orange Brigade machine, then left me for Star, shattering my little heart along the way. Obviously, my affection to these riders and their family is stronger than my affection to my job, so I've stayed close with them along their journey, and I'm very proud and excited for his debut. But Kaden won the Hangtown Combine this past weekend fairly easy and is using the Loretta rule to his advantage like Enzo Timmerman did, which means he can race a couple pro nationals without ruining his eligibility to race the ranch in August. But in reality, if he crushes it, I bet he stays pro, and that is my hope. Great family, great story, and if you do good this weekend, Kaden, I'll buy you Mimi's for old time's sake. It's a Rookie of the Year check-in for lead story number 7, and we do have a name that has jumped into the conversation after 2 great weeks of racing, and it's Parker Ross, who joins Drew Adams and Mikel Harrup in the chase for the award. Right now, it's Adams at 39 points, Harrup at 38, and Ross at 34. Wow. Sneaky. Parker is not so sneaky good at Moto anymore. We all know that now with a 10th place finish in Moto 2. Harrup is figuring things out with 2 top 10 Moto finishes last weekend. And Drew had a terrible first Moto at Hangtown, but rebounded with a solid 7th in Moto 2 and sits in the driver's seat heading into Lakewood. Barely. I would have liked to see Cole Davies get a shot at it this summer. I think we all do, but he is out and will most likely have to wait for 2026. But he does have one of the more legendary Rookie of the Year photos ever from Salt Lake City, a pic that got him 150,000 likes on Instagram. Obviously a terrible day, but it's safe to say that that will be the most liked Rookie of the Year photo of all time. Lead story number 6 is all about that rebound, and the biggest rebound from rounds 1 to 2 goes to Levi Kitchen, while the biggest rebound for a rider's brand and image goes to the Jo Show, Jo Shimoda, who has officially stamped it as the number 2 rider in 250 motocross, going 2-2-2-2 so far. For Kitchen, the title chase is over, which takes away a pressure I don't think he was ready to handle anyways, but now makes his objective perfectly clear. Be the 2026 heir apparent to the throne, which is what all these dudes are now chasing while Haiden Deegan plays around with the 250 class on his way to a 22-0 perfect season. I still can't buy into that because dirt bike racing is dirt bike racing and this class is too volatile. I still believe that on the right day and in the right conditions, Levi and maybe Joe, Chance, Ty, Tom, or even Juju can sneak one on him. But everything would have to go so right and the Deegs would have to have some issues. Either way, Levi is chasing second in points so he can be the favorite for 2026 and prove he's worth the investment that PC just made in a 2-year extension, and his rebound at Hangtown was a move in the right direction. If he gets to second, he'll have to go through Joe, who has had a total brand rebound. He is the clear number 2 right now, and if we look back to A1, which he won and was pretty great at, honestly, the season starts to look a little different, right? I mean, you try to be at the top of this class when you can barely hold on. Good luck. But every year things change, the hierarchy adjusts, and although we had breakouts from Juju, Seth, and Cole indoors, if Joe continues to do what he's doing, he will be a favorite in 2026, indoor and out. And if Deegs gets a little complacent up front and does something silly, it'll most likely be Joe who ruins his perfect season. Don't forget about Seattle. Joe hasn't. Lead story number 5 is for my dude Cody Schock, the world, who was living in the top 10 at Hangtown for most of the day in what has to be the most stacked 450 class we've ever seen. He finished 12th overall, which on paper is not an oh wow result or even his best, but he was surrounded by champions for almost 70 minutes last weekend, and knowing what I know, I think he'll get better once we go east. Cody had to switch from 15-minute motos on a 250 indoors to 35-minute motos on a 450 outdoors and is still developing settings and comfort along the way. A summer battling with the big dogs and big names will be a benefit for his return to 250 Supercross next year and should help give him champion racecraft and confidence. I mean, look at the class. Every rider in the top 10 last weekend at Hangtown has won championships in this sport. That is insane. And my dude Cody was just chilling in the middle of it. And I know he's very excited to take this thing east. I am absolutely gutted for lead story number 4, Aaron Plessinger, who beat Jett Lawrence at Hangtown, which is awesome. But he had a moto win taken away from him by Eli Tomac with similar vibes and feels to last year's Hangtown moto win theft by Chase Sexton. We all thought Eli would beat Jett in motos and maybe overalls this summer, but we didn't think the Cowboy would too, and in Moto 1 he did, straight up. This is starting to feel like Supercross to me. He had that Detroit win grabbed from him with a lap to go, and I remember feeling like, dang, that may have been his shot. He has come back and won 2 of those since, and now I want the outdoor one bad. With Jett and Eli on the gate, it feels like the odds aren't there, but like Supercross, if we just will him to victory with absolute fan force, we can get this. And for one of the more underrated racers in the sport, I think like his Supercross victories and Malcolm Stewart's win in Orlando, the entire sport would go nuts when he gets it. When it comes to character and personal branding, there's nobody better in the sport, but when it comes to the riding and the racing, he's legitimately one of the baddest dudes and is putting together a really good career and stacking cash along the way. Don't forget, it took a couple heartbreaks before we got the wins in Supercross, and Hangtown Moto 1 was an absolute crusher for the 2nd year in a row. Damn you, Eli. Just kidding. Thank you, Eli, for putting the perfect season talk to rest. And lead story number 3 is the number 3 of Eli Tomac, who fired us up at Hangtown with his Moto 1 victory, but left Hangtown probably the maddest he's been in years. Although Moto 1 was amazing for all us fans, the entire day in whole was terrible for a guy who wants more than Moto wins this season. He wants the title. He's not looking at Jett as some dude he wants to sneak Moto wins on. He signed up to win the championship and left Hangtown further down in points and now has double digits to make up. Perception is everything, and although we may perceive Moto wins as a win, try telling that to a 4-time champ who trains to win championships. I don't think his odds are great. Jett is a freakazoid, but I do believe what we saw Moto 1 will happen again, honestly and hopefully, multiple times this summer. But I also believe that these potential Moto wins should be seen as incredible moments and outliers, as Jett will most likely get the start on Eli 95% of the time, and running down AP late in the Moto is not the same as running down Jett, who does not have a history of giving up race leads late, or ever. But I think we can officially say that Hangtown is a special place for Eli, who won his very first Pro National there, and put on one of the more legendary motos of all time there, where he won by over a minute. And while Jett may have won the overall, Hangtown has proven once again to be a place where he is slightly vulnerable. Lakewood this weekend? Not so much. Lead story number 2, unfortunately, is the Super Motocross Instagram page that decided to, well, let me gently put it this way, piss off the majority of their fan base and their athletes. It's very simple. You have to know who your customers are, and you can't be that disconnected from your fan base. And with the comments on the post being shut off right away and the backlash they received from the stars of the sport, I think they learned that pretty quickly. I, personally, don't care what you do, who you do, how you do it, in your own time and in your own privacy, unless, of course, you touch a kid, then you should be castrated or hung publicly. I think we all agree on that, right? But it's none of my business what you as an adult do in your own time, and who am I to judge? I'm a sinner too. I've never had a single issue in my life with anyone from any other race or other sexual identity or preference. In fact, my issues have always been with straight white people. Go figure. And to me, it's really all about character and how you treat others. I mean, if a flamboyant gay person or a trans person was approaching the door, I'd gladly open it for them. No problem whatsoever. If it was a furry, I'd open the doggy door and I'd give them a treat if they want one. But when I saw the post, like almost everyone, I was like, really? Come on. I, like almost everyone, am deeply annoyed by having cultural issues and socially divisive topics that only spark anger injected into the sport that I love. I love Moto, and I don't want any politics or any divisive topics forced into my sanctuary. Not because I think those aren't serious matters, they are, and there's a place for it, but not here. Sports are a relief from the real world debate. We want to debate Haiden versus Jett, or Chase versus Cooper, and scoop tires. And there are certain topics that only bring out harsh and heated division, and this has always been one of them. Pride isn't about gay rights or human rights anymore. That was decades ago. Pride has been hijacked by social activists, and activism in any way and from any angle can stay in its lane. And as we all learned this week, motocross isn't the lane. That's my personal opinion. Do with it what you will. But some very simple and fair advice is just know your fan base. If your fan base or your customer base wants hot, don't give them cold. If they want protein, don't give them carbs. If they want up, don't give them down. It's that Simple. Moto people love engines, dirt, the smell of race gas, and block passes. And when it comes to colors and flags, we like cool gear colorways and graphics, and we love the red, white, and blue flag. We're very easy to please, but also easy to piss off, as seen by the response of your current Supercross champ Cooper Webb and your former 4-time Supercross champ Ryan Villopoto, who don't want this injected into their sport either. Whoever decided this post was a good idea either doesn't know their own fan base or doesn't care. But it's 2025 and the days of showcasing are over. The days of people quietly putting up with activism are over, and there's no place for any of that here. The debate we should be having right now is over my number 1 lead story, which is the pending rivalry between Haiden Deegan and Jett Lawrence. So who you got, Haiden or Jett? That's the lead story heading into Lakewood, even though they are not racing each other just yet. Jett has done it all. He's credentialed beyond compare, but it's time to look at what's coming, and that is due to 2 things. One being the way Haiden Deegan is dominating the 250 class, which Jett weirdly didn't do at this level. And the second reason is that Deegs has already done a little chirping at Jett. We're back in January at the A1 presser. He said, and I quote, "On our best day, on 250s, Jett wouldn't stand a chance." Whoa. In reality, numbers are hard to compute. Every year is different. The competition and situation is always different, and you can never really compare them fairly. But we all have eyeballs, and it's time to start having the discussion as these two start to lay the groundwork for a pending duel of the Titans. It's coming soon, and if Deegs has proven anything over the last 2 years, he ain't afraid to talk, and he backs it up. I think in Supercross he'll have work to do, as I don't think he's a complete product just yet. Neither was Ryan Villopoto, who was a little iffy on a 250 indoors, but turned into a 4-time straight 450 Supercross champ and has some similarities to the Deegs in the way he rides the motorcycle. But on motocross, nothing is missing. Haiden is an absolute animal, and although Jett's had talent advantages on the field that have allowed him to do things nobody has ever done before, like go perfect as a rookie outdoors, then back it up by winning his rookie season of Supercross, he has yet to deal with someone like Haiden. I don't believe Deegs will win either rookie campaign, but I do believe he will be the biggest thorn in Jett's side. He will be able to beat him. How often? I don't know, but we're less than a year away from our first of hopefully many popcorn seasons. A year ago, I was uncertain, but I've seen enough, and I'm completely sold. This sport is about to get the juiciest rivalry of all time, and all we have to do now is wait around and watch both dominate their classes for the next year. But the clock is ticking. 12 months, and we'll see you next week.
Main event, motomerch.com. Main event, motomerch.com. Main event, motomerch.com. Main event, motomerch.com.